Hello, I'm Dr. Marcus Camillo, President and CEO of Del Mar College. Welcome to the 2021 Mexican American Studies Summer Seminar. We at Del Mar College are excited to offer this engaging and enriching virtual event. I'm sure that you'll take from the seminar a wealth of information and new appreciation for the Mexican American experience. I'm proud to say that the Mexican American Studies program is now in its 10th year at Del Mar College. To begin the seminar, I'd like to focus on one of the program's early proponents, the late professor of English, Mike Anzaldua Jr. Mike, who was named Professor Emeritus after retiring from Del Mar College, left a far-reaching legacy. He was the first member of his family to attend college and the first full-time Hispanic English teacher hired at Del Mar College. He served as a role model for many of his students. Mike was devoted to his students and always put the college before himself. He earned numerous honors and awards during his 43-year career, including Del Mar College's Dr. Eileen Creighton Award for Teaching Excellence. I knew Mike as a friend and a colleague. My life is richer for having known him. Now please watch as some special guests share their memories of Mike Anzaldua.
Mike and I agreed about one thing, that working at Del Mar College was the best job in the world.
I was very fortunate to know Mike Anzaldua for over 39 years, and to me, he was the heart of Del Mar College.
You know, it was very important. My daughter had Mike for an English teacher, and she spoke highly of him. He's been influential with the students. It's very important because having a role model of somebody who is caring, who is a humanitarian, I think Mike Anzaldua epitomizes all this, and the students see that.
So it was always about trying to help the students so that they wouldn't drop or stop their education. He always wanted to see them succeed, get their degree, and then having done that, to encourage them to go on. He could relate to those students because he came from Robstown. And in Robstown, I know that that he grew up there, and he probably during the school years he knew what it was as far as to want something but not being able to accomplish as far as financially, and it was a difficult situation. But if the desire was there, then those students somebody should be able to help them to complete, to finish what they want.
Del Mar College recognized the legacy of the Professor Emeritus of English with an announcement of Anzaldua's gift of over $400,000 for scholarships in English, music, the Mexican American Studies program, and the Texas Association of Chicanos in higher education.
Mike not only gave 43 years of his entire heart and soul and life to the college, but he also left behind a substantial amount of money for student scholarships.
Because he truly cared about education and truly cared about his students, and not just looking at it as just any ordinary everyday job, but he loved it. He loved being a teacher, he loved being a student, he loved getting involved with organizations that would help further their education.
I knew Mike well for about 25 years, and Mike, I believe, was a very good teacher. He certainly knew his material, and he was deeply dedicated to it. But he also never succumbed to the temptation to become cynical or burnt out or tired of his job. He always gave his best to it, And that's something I took away from Mike Anzaldua.
Mike Anzaldua as a teacher was an ultimate teacher in that he had so many students that individually gravitated to him and his life story. And he came through Del Mar College and then went on to receive his advanced degrees. So people saw him as a role model. And so that greatly influenced his teaching ability, and I think in the ability of students to see him as that role model. So beyond the storytelling in the classroom and how he taught, he himself was that role model.
One that stands out to me in particular is when I first met him. That is one of my fondest memories of Mike. A colleague introduced us outside in front of the English building. I had only been here a very short time. I don't know, maybe a year or two at the most. It was just a very kind of brief introduction. And Mike was friendly, welcoming, as was Mike's way, very cordial. And what struck me, and again, this is through the perspective of a very new faculty member, is that Mike told me, I hope you become involved in the issues at the college. And I was struck by that. I thought, he doesn't know me. I've just met him. But he was making me feel that my opinion mattered, that my perspective mattered. He didn't need to know me. He didn't need to know me to be able to invite me to be a part of the college.
You would just get that feeling that he would make you feel like you are important. I remember in a meeting, there was discussion, and I was just, taking in some notes, writing some notes, and then I was just, listening, and he just said, and everybody would start talking, and they were asking him to say something, and he turned around and said, Rosalinda, what do you think? And I'm like, he's asking me for my opinion? So I was taken aback that he cared what I thought about, what we were talking about, the discussion, because he really wanted to include everybody.
When he and I were walking together on campus, didn't matter if it was the president, a regent, a teaching colleague, a student, the grounds person, person after person would say, hey, Mike. And Mike always knew these people, and he always responded to them. And I would say, Mike, what am I, the invisible man? Because Mike knew everybody, and everybody knew him. And their position in life was not important to him. He treated everybody with equal respect. And that's one thing I really appreciated about Mike.
My administrator was a little different, as you can imagine. I give you the top 10 administrative responses heard coming out of Mike Anzaldua's mouth. Unlike Star Trek, you are boldly going nowhere.
Needless to say, his message is sometimes subtle and sometimes direct. He says what he feels. He's not afraid because he has tenure. And there's nothing anybody can do to touch him.
I've been a student at Del Mar like for the longest time, and Mike always had a position of his demeanor was that of somebody that was real relaxed. Every time you saw him, he was a real mild individual. Mike always sat right outside the English building, between classes, and sometimes I would go by and just sit, we'll just talk.
Part of the idea of embedding the quotations into the architecture is to foster that kind of communication. And Mike would have really approved of that. He was kind of a quiet guy in many respects, but he also valued friendship very much. One of the quotations is Robert Frost. One of his poems where Frost is out hoeing fields and a friend stops his horse to talk, and Frost looks on all the fields he has to hoe still, and yet he props his hoe up and walks over to talk. Mike Anzaldua would do that under all occasions, I would say.
When I walk through the Mike Anzaldua Plaza, I can't help but think about Mike. And I see the narrative and the words that are written on the benches that have to do with great literature and great philosophy. And I do think about Mike, and as if they were coming from him. Mike was a humble man, and for this fantastic facility here at the college to be named in his memory is a great tribute to Mike. And I think that it brings about the essence of who Mike was, through nature, through literature, and through the college as a whole.
I retired about 4 years ago, and I am, in fact, today, June 7th, seeing this plaza for the first time, even though I've seen some of the architectural work, the schematics and the conceptions and so forth. And I have to say that the Richters, the architectural firm, everybody involved in this, I think have done a spectacular job with the plaza. It's so fitting to see a fairly simple entrance to both ends with just Mike Anzaldua Plaza.
It reminds me of, this area where the English building was and where he used to sit out and contemplate, and you see his sayings that he has on the different plaques throughout the this little concourse here, and so it comes pretty close to reflecting his character. It has that serene calmness that Mike had.
One of his favorite quotes is Emily Dickinson. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? That was an attitude toward life that Mike might have had. He might have asked the question, why are we spending all this money and time to create something to honor me? But you're gone, Mike. We plan to do this, and we mean for this to reflect, the aspirations that many students might have.
I feel a little, privileged to have known him, and I'm never gonna forget the person he was. And just knowing this plaza is out here, it really, I have the memories of him being out here with the students.
We want people to remain connected to Mike Anzaldua, to know Mike Anzaldua for generations to come, because it's important, but also it will enrich people's lives to continue to know about Mike Anzaldua.
Mike Anzaldua is still touching the lives of our students. After his passing in 2012, his estate left a gift of over $400,000 to Del Mar College. That gift continues to make education attainable for students every year through endowed and direct scholarships. Mike is also memorialized here in the Mike Anzaldua Plaza, a beautiful outdoor space running the length of the new General Academic Music Building on the East Campus.